Hello there, folks. We're back from our little break here, just before our best of three for the finals, and we're joined here now by our two finalist teams. We've got AndreasG, Matiz, Elodea, and KillerKiwi in channel with us. Say hello, guys.
Hey, hello.
Hello.
So, how is everyone feeling in advance of what is going to be a fairly profitable night for somebody? I mean, you guys are both here. You're going to be sharing either the $200 or the $400 prize pool. You're paying for the difference here. How's everyone feeling about that?
Yeah, it's going to be a hard-fought victory for either team for sure. I think both of us deserve the spot.
Yeah, you tell it.
I'd like to just ask to Elodea, and then I'll come to Matiz afterwards as well. What's it been like for you coming back to the game after so long away?
Well, I feel like kind of like a tourist, basically. So, Kiwi's basically been carrying all the games. But I mean, like, PA is really fun. So probably might play more in the future.
This might be the start of a new era for you.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, if I have time.
And Matiz, how have you found it coming back back into PA after a while away?
Man, it's amazing. I'm having so much fun. It's crazy.
Does it
I've been like streaming 10 hours a day since I came back and stuff, and I actually played quite a bit. So I still suck at everything that's not just ground fights on small maps, but I feel comfortable there.
You've been playing for 10 hours a day and you still feel like you suck in some elements of the game?
Yeah, like Orbital, for example, I built Teleporter first time in my life a week ago, right? So I'm still trying to figure that out. Like Quich said that it's very cute. It's like baby steps of a child that tries to start to walk, and basically my Orbital is still like that kind of.
But it's good to have you both back with us, and I hope that you do choose to stick around again. It's really good to see some old faces again. You two are both absolute stalwarts of the community way back when. It's great to see you back.
Thanks.
Kiwi, how's it been for you training Elodea back up to his former glory?
Well, I mean, Elodea, he thinks he's super rusty, but I mean, he's really not too far from what he used to be. I mean, I think he's pretty good. He's got all the basics down. He's got the intermediate down as well. He's just learning some of the advanced strategies that I've been teaching him and coaching him as we've been playing. So it's been great, yeah.
And Andreas, have you felt like you've had quite a lot to teach Matiz over the last few weeks?
Well, it's been amazing to have Matiz as a student, because he's been playing so much on his own too, and then I'll be coming with feedback, and then he's practicing that and implementing it, and he got a great strategy head. So we'll just sit and look at a planet and talk about ways we can play it out, and ways to play to his strengths and my strengths, right? And like how we work as a team more, even because he's been de-rusting in ranked Q2, so it's been very fun.
Good. I'm glad everyone's enjoyed it. It's a really clever idea that I think Citizens has come up with here, and it's worked really well. It's been a pleasure watching all of you guys play in the warm-up rounds to this point. And now it all comes down to your best of three. How are you feeling about the map pool that we've got for this best of three? We've got at the moment we've got Overcooked Pizza is coming up for this one, and the next one is Frozen Oreo Yogurt. I don't actually know what the final map is. That's, I think, being kept a secret ever since. But
these maps are stacked. I made both of them, so
yeah, they're in Andreas's advantage for sure.
I have so many secrets on these maps, right? Like hidden paths on the CSGs, teleportation, portals in certain corners. Watch out.
But there's a bit of orbital in here already, I can see. Is that scaring anybody?
You weren't supposed to say that.
Well, it depends how much the asteroids have in terms of metal. If they have a lot of metal, it might be an interesting orbital game for sure.
I think it's like 400 on each of them, maybe.
Oh,
I don't quite remember, but
yeah, it'll be interesting then.
Fantastic. Well, guys, wish you all the very best of luck. May the best team win, and whatever happens, go away and have fun.
Just before we disappear though, any last words to your opposing team? Let's start with Andreas and Matiz.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be cooked like the map. Overcooked pizza. That's what's gonna happen.
Well, I think we stumped you in a previous game, and I think that's gonna happen again.
You're like your frozen Oreo yogurt to us. What was that, Elodea?
I just wanted to give Andreas and Matiz a chance to get into the finals. That's why I purposely lost that game.
And we appreciate it, and now you're gonna regret it.
Yeah, you play with your food, it might come back to bite you. Well, without any further ado, chaps, let's get you into this overcooked pizza. Who will be cooked? Who will have the thin crust? Who will have pineapple? And who will be forced to eat it?
And who will have a slice of victory?
Who will have a slice of victory? Let's find out. Thank you very much, chaps. I'll see you on the other side. Good luck and have fun.
Good luck,
See ya.
everybody.
Good luck.
Good luck. Have fun, guys.
Well. Let's give them a chance to get back into their rooms before we ask them to start the game. I'm going to pop up ready in the lobby there. It's going to be quite a good match, I reckon. With different maps compared to last time, I think these could be somewhat of different games to what we've seen from them before.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to see Orbital, because that's, after all, what Planetary Annihilation really is all about. That's what makes this difference from other strategy games. The fact that you're not just playing on a single flat map. You are playing on a sphere, not just one sphere, but you have the opportunity to go out into space and fight on multiple different planets. And when you have these shared armies team games, and you have these multi-planet systems, or in this case, one planet and an asteroid belt, that is when you really start to see the team armies aspect of the game shine. Because one player can just say, right, I'm going to take control of this planet, and the other player goes off and takes control of something else. And then that is how you manage between the two of you, or more, if you're playing with more than two players on the team. And that's how you can really start to increase the amount of attention you can devote to an entire solar system. It's really good fun, guys. If you haven't tried any large voice chat enabled, I strongly suggest voice chat enabled Team Armies games. I really recommend doing them. They're so much fun.
Yeah, they really are. It's the way to play, and shared as well. Like TheWrongCat and I played through all the way through pre-release and post-release as well, and honestly, shared is the way to go. As long as you're in voice chat with your teammates, and if you're not, encourage them into voice chat. Don't just assume that, oh, they're not there. Get them into the Discord.
So
You'll have so much
strongly
more fun.
encourage.
Strongly encourage, indeed. Anyway, this is Overcooked Pizza, the first of our final best of three between our two remaining teams, KillerKiwi Juice and Elodea, and AndreasG and Matiz on Overcooked Pizza. Polar spawns moving down through natural expansions towards the centre here, and round the back for the platforms as well. Here we go. On the north, you've got Andreas and Matiz into vehicles air. So we got vehicle double air from Andreas, and Matiz going vehicle only, not queuing anything up just yet. That's intriguing.
Is he going to assist the vehicle factory? No, here comes the queue now.
Here we
He's
go.
perhaps having a discussion with his teammate as to what he should be building.
Yeah, very, very wise indeed. And there we go. Look, a very strong bot transition combined. Andreas is going into a fourth bot and a fifth bot as well over there. So we're going to have 4 bot factories from these guys total after a double vehicle start.
Rush strats.
Very interesting indeed. Down on the south though, you've got KillerKiwi and Elodea. We've got vehicle bot and bot vehicles. Less of a focus from either player here. Much more of a standard opening, I feel, from these guys. Trying to cover all their bases, going double vehicle, double bot simultaneously.
Fairly symmetrical. And I think it's interesting what we gleaned from those interviews. Andreas thinks, I should say this word, he thinks he has an upper hand because he's designed this map. So perhaps he's willing to try some slightly more outlandish and a bit more out there strategies, because he thinks he's got some knowledge about the system that his opponents may not. Certainly he will be wise to the timings of those asteroids, which may play to his advantage if he's able to actually get out there and do it. It may well be that they spend so much time on the surface layer, he forgets to go out and do whatever he's planning on doing out there. Who knows? But either way, both players playing fairly balanced, as you say, in Gunmetal Grey, sweeping up with some expansion, some scouting around both sides. Got some early... I forget the name of these bloody units. What are they called?
Strikers?
Strikers, that's the one. So early strikers coming out from Gunmetal Grey, just pushing back the early attempt to expand by those vehicle fabricators. They're now being escorted by a sizable force of T1 units there, trying to push down towards this natural expansion down here, which is very weakly defended by Gunmetal Grey.
We've got a Faber drop over here from the blue team. Andreas and Matiz dropping one over onto that platform over yonder, where they're going to get up some free expo, because both of these teams are going to assume that most of the action is going to happen on these bird's eyes or with sort of long form expos. But what we've got here is quite a swift expo, although it hasn't actually started to produce yet, but it's got a way out of dodge and out of sight that Kiwi and Elodea do not know about at this point in time.
The fabricator count I find quite interesting. Andreas and Matiz, very low fabricator count, and they're all, I think, vehicle fabricators. I haven't seen any bot fabbers yet. They're much slower. They are more powerful and more efficient from memory, unless that's changed since I last did this. And they're slightly more resilient, but they are slower, less mobile units. We've got a pelter going up here for Gunmetal Grey to counter the laser defense tower being built by the blue team.
It's very strange, because we're going to see the battle lines drawn along these two corridors of play, if you will, and then we're going to see them expand outwards and backwards. But blue so far is trying to get rid of Gunmetal Grey's attempt at expanding backwards. We've got an Icarus here about to get a triple fab snipe. There we go, second Icarus coming in for another couple of exposed fabs. Not going to get it though, but 3 fab loss at this moment in time isn't great for the Gunmetal Grey team. They've just started their T2, but equally, blue will not be far off. We're getting into about 5 minutes into this game now, and that is the standard sort of time for T2 to appear. 5-6 minutes is the golden hour, as it were. Happy hour for T2.
I'm still really curious about this fabricator disparity, because the blue team just aren't building that many. Even though they've lost those 3 fabricators, the Gunmetal Grey, they had so many more to start with. So I think it must be a rush strat going here. So it looks very aggressive, certainly in the playstyle that blue are playing here. Are they trying, instead of building fabricators and building out and expanding, are they instead trying to do some sort of rush strategy here?
We would have expected to see a difference in the army and factory counts there, but Grey have had the advantage in both of that in those instances as well. So if it was a rush strat, it didn't work.
So what now? We've got a little bit of airplay now on the back of the planet, a couple of little air forces sort of skitting around each other, not really doing that much, just basically scouting, making sure that their opponent isn't taking too much of an advantage on the rear of the planet. Sensible thing to do. A large force of strikers here. That's a really big raiding force.
With an ant, which makes them very slow.
Well, I don't know, yeah.
They shouldn't really be there with the ant, to be honest with you.
I mean, I agree. I don't know where they're going either. They're kind of wandering off away from where they could be actually doing stuff. There seems to be a lack of micro here.
Might go that way. That ways.
Let's see. They're on the move again now.
Here we go. Striker, striker, striker. Move, 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 move.
So the ant's been detached to go and do anti-things.
In fact, look at this. Oh no, they haven't seen it. Black haven't seen that platform expansion. It's most interesting.
Very sly from the blue team.
T2 bots complete for Gunmetal Grey, and we have lava between them, which means locust opportunity. They can, of course, go over the lava. And blue are very far behind on their T2. Are they supplementing their T1 as a result? Well, if they are, it's not doing very well because their army count is 30 below that of Grey. That being said, the Grenadier count on Matiz's corridor here has just sort of flanked this little push from the Grey team here. From
that could be
side.
Quite dangerous. There's quite a lot of mechs. There is a Pelter now trying to deal with this issue, taking out the only air defense they had with them, which is quite useful, but I don't really see an air force from Gunmetal Grey to follow up on that. This is what it is. It's going to be a real nuisance for the Grey team.
It's not looking great in that instance, but the T2 bots are out. As long as they're correctly microed, they will have the advantage there. Blue Hawks as well, yes.
There we go, that's going to take them off at range.
I'm surprised we're not having locusts. Blue team still have yet to get their T2. The strikers are still doing raiding, and we have a pause. Sorry, door, 1 sec. Matiz is getting post. Is that his hacks? Oh, I don't know.
One delivery of hacks, please.
Like, where did that come from? I don't know.
He's been hand delivered the stream key. He says back go go.
Back go go.
I think he's waiting for confirmation. We can't type in there, can we?
No, I haven't enabled it.
We'll wait for the other team to acknowledge and hopefully continue playing.
Ready.
Take over from me. Very sporting of Matiz. Even gave him a countdown and everything.
Pausing because losing, says Safati. Well, hence delivery of hacks. But it continues. The Grenadiers there, skirting back as fast as they can to try and conserve their number rather than losing them needlessly. Meanwhile, on the other side, Grenadiers pushing up on the mechs and the turrets over there. What are Grey doing on the other side, though? They've got strikers raiding the back. They're not going to do too much more damage. There are ants and docks to deal with this now. But still looks like they've kind of hampered it a little bit over there. And Team Blue seems a little bit disorganised, I think is the word.
I think so. It looks like Team Grey have really sort of dug themselves some nice little trenches there on the front line. They've got themselves nice and comfy, and they're just preventing Blue from moving down these primary corridors that we have here. And in the meantime, looking at the back of the planet, again, lots of expansion, little blobs of Grey units just moving here, there and everywhere, really. There's complete control of this rear side of the planet from the Grey team. Except for that one little enclave which we saw early on, which is still doing rather well for itself. Has a little bot factory now, pretty much self-sustaining. That can be a little satellite base for the Blue team if they have any troubles with their primaries. And we have a push from Gunmetal Grey down one of the primary lanes.
I don't think it's going to do too much. There's a ghillie there to defend. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the ghillies so you can see them in their positioning there. Picking away, losing one for Blue, but the number of Grenadiers is just too many for the range of the units that are trying to attack, which forces them back a little bit. Now, we did have a ping from Blue, probably on this volcano, saying, "We put a firefly on there. We'll be able to see stuff." Unless it was a misping, in which case, I'm reading into nothing. But, it's a possibility.
Tier 2 vehicles now going up for both teams, so we could see those all-important radar Heidi Vanguards coming out to play, as well as all of the usual slew of slightly tankier, slightly harder hitting T2 vehicles they can produce. There are no Tier 2 vehicles that can hover, am I correct?
No T2 ones, no, only the Drifter.
Good. Right, that's good. There's no more changes that I've not seen in the last few months. I'm really hanging out for these locusts, Marshy. I think.
I feel like the time for them has passed, but still, look. If
those commanders are they could go straight across the lava and get both the commanders. You can get locusts.
Locusts can't kill commanders. They chew way too slowly. But it's a completely undefended avenue, which can go straight into the energy lines for sure. But you don't want to engage commanders with locusts. Far.
Good to know. We've got a little army of Grenadiers now pushing back down one of the primary corridors, supported by some air and some T2 in the mix as well.
I mean, Blue do have a nice counter push here. Nick says in chat that Kiwi probably had a misplay with the T2 as he pushed in. Probably should have pushed in rather than retreating there. But either which way, he's having to pay the piper on that one. We've got a line defense down here, but there's so many Grenadiers that they'll just be able to fire over these mountains. And the line of sight here is crucial. And going for sniper bots and slammers is even more so, whereas the Grenadiers just ignore it completely.
This push now, this counter push from blue, I don't think it's necessarily going to be able to do as much damage as they would have liked. There's enough T2, I think, in there to repel those Grenadiers, but it's just quite interesting to see how quickly these lines can change. It certainly seems like the other flank is a lot more stationary. The flank which we're seeing the action on, the toing and froing, far more active. Both teams choosing to commit significant forces down that channel to try and push into their opponent's base. Really good bit of raiding now from blue. Grenadiers taking out this little channel of grey metal, undefended.
And they need to do that because look at the metal disparity there, 340 to 190. It's they really do need to get on that raiding game, because if we go even further around the back of the planet there, Grey has eliminated that little platform that Blue expanded to earlier on, and have expanded mostly around the back, but Blue just have not done so, and Grey now started to push in from the rear as well. Blue feeling very, very choked in here, very surrounded, apart from Matiz's corridor where he's managed to buy a little bit of ground. But other than that, they feel very, very passive, very defensive.
But have they defended that corridor, or pushed that corridor rather, at the expense of defending any of their rear? Because as you say, they've got all of these units here that have got complete free access into the back of their base. Only now are Blue starting to send those units backwards, but that now means that they're committing fewer forwards, and that's going to give Grey the advantage there. Grey really are pulling ahead now in the eco game as well. Army count double.
Yeah,
it's starting to look like it's stacking up against our blue team. And looks like the first of our asteroids has appeared, and it has got 2, 3, 4, 5 metal points on it, and it's a single halliable.
Given the state of the game, I don't think the asteroids are going to come into play, to be honest with you.
I would agree, but it's there if anyone wants to feel a bit necky and throw a planet at their opponents. It would be nice. I still want to see a planet smash.
It would
desperately.
be nice. It would be very nice. Lots of shellers to defend any inroads that Grey were attempting on Blue here. Blue do have a stalwart defense, but it's they're not really managing to push back out. They're staying status quo. They need something else to get them back out there, to push Grey back, rather than to just maintain the line. They need to push it forward a bit.
But I also sense a little bit of hesitance on the part of the Grey team, perhaps not realising just how much of an advantage they do have right now. It seems like they've got all these armies encircling the blue bases and just not willing to commit any one of them and pushing in and losing that line of defence. And so, as you say, rightly, those shellers are just picking off the incoming armies at range for a reasonable cost exchange. And that is perhaps going to start playing in their favour if it continues long enough. But I suspect we may be on the verge of seeing a pincer movement on multiple fronts here from the Grey team, surrounding and then sending in all their armies at once, forcing Blue to leave at least one of those flanks undefended.
They're trying to push out on the flank though. They've got a couple of forces there. They need a bit more AA though, because that bombing force from Grey just mopped it up. I got excited for a moment and no more. God, even with Galata around the place, that is just devastating, and the troublesome shellers
have been
greatly reduced indeed. And I must admit, I've sort of wanted to comment that I think Grey weren't pushing in on this side particularly because of all those pelters that they would have to push through, and rightly so. Meanwhile now though, pushing up on this side, squaring up again, Kiwi and Matiz staring each other down, concaves formed, snipers pecking, grenadiers poised.
This is a very good micro from both teams here. They know what units they've got, they know the composition, they know the arcs of fire, they know the ranges, and they're trying to play them off against each other. I would say that the blue team doing a better job of microing and keeping those distance units away from the harder hitting, shorter ranged units. The Grenadiers being picked off, being forced to retreat now, but they have completely prevented that invasion force from getting into the base. They've done very, very well. They had the numerical disadvantage then, played it well.
And that numerical disadvantage you talk about, look at it now, 89 to 230. It's sliding further and further. The eco game now, 400 to 150. It's not looking good for the blue team. Chat, who are you supporting, blue or grey, in both this game and the best of 3? Let us know.
Both armies, though, choking their economies right now, down to about 60% efficiency. I can't quite tell what's driving that from the grey team. Is it just the sheer volume of units they're producing? Is there
They've got
something
21 factories and almost 30 fabricators. A lot of air fabs as well, actually, it should be noted. They're trying to get up T2 economy in their base, so they're trying to rectify it, but it's giving the blue team a little bit of time here. A little bit of time.
And time is exactly what they need right now. All they need is a little bit more indecision from grey, giving them a chance to push back, make some more of those favourable trades, and they have to be favourable. That's the important thing. With this army disparity, the blue team need to make some extremely favourable trades. They need to be killing way more units than they're losing, and so far they seem to be doing a good job. Shellers at the moment picking off a big chunk of this grey army, which is about to charge into the back of the blue base. I don't think there's actually going to be enough there to do anything about it.
Yeah, no, I don't think blue have the defensive force. Blue's entire army is all pushed all the way up the lanes, so in order to come back and defend, they would have to reroute everything. I think we're going to see commanders engaged here. The entire power line is going to get gobbled by these docks and ants, and that's not looking great. Air fabs as well getting caught out on the way.
Really good use of grenadiers here, hiding behind the terrain of the CSG, lobbing grenades up over the top, but the GGs have been called.
And that is game 1 in our best of 3, going to Kiwi and Elodea. King Beast and his protege Matiz have been declined a victory. Wow, what do you think of that?
That was actually an extremely good game, even right up to the end there. Although the grey team certainly pulled away and had the numerical and the economic advantage there, I still held out hope, even up to the last 5 minutes or so, that the blue team could stage a comeback there. It was possible, it was within their grasp. I would have loved to have seen, exactly as you highlighted there, some locusts going over that lava, because that could have been a complete game changer. In fact, more locusts in general. There was lots of undefended mechs around the back of that planet. A couple of locusts or anything of that nature being sent around the back just to pick off some of those mechs would have completely changed the game there. But that's it. We've got 1-0 now to Kiwi and Elodea. Back in the day. This is exactly why Citizens hosted this, is so we could just sit here and reminisce. Poor viewers.
Oh dear. Well, the next round has begun, and we're playing on frozen Oreo yogurt. Another one of AndreasG's maps, another one where he has a distinct advantage, or so he says, having lost the previous game. Polar spawns once again.
And this map is a little bit interesting.
Indeed, indeed. A lot of it clinches on control of the pool on the back. The ocean there. Control of this 6 mechs is pretty key. And moving up and around there as well. Quite a nice map, this one.
Is this another of Andreas, or is this one of yours?
No, this is another Andreas one.
If it was your own map, you wouldn't say it's quite a nice map, would you? Because you'd be waiting for someone else to say it. Yeah, it's just the kind of guy you are, Mark. Humble to a fault.
Thank you so much.
Well, I mean, I said to a fault, so it's not actually. It's a bit of a backhanded compliment, to be honest. Well, that's plotting going on by the blue team here. And pings coming down in the middle. So, some sort of amphibious assault, perhaps.
Or sneaky telestrats. As I see that blue, I think, spawning north? If they spawn north, then we're going to have proxy telestrats into here. I reckon that's where the pings were going. If they spawn south, then...
What's that funny symbol in the chat?
I don't know, I think that's...
It says cheer 1. I've got no idea. Either way, here come the players.
Here come the players. Grey is on the south, so blue is on the north. Could they go for some cheese strats here? Kiwi and Elodea in the second series, second of this best of 3 finals in the Battle of the Ancients tournament.
Well remembered, Marshall.
Well remembered, yeah, better than some. We're going bots and air into double vehicles there. On the north, though, we've got Andreas and Matiz. Bots vehicles into air. Woof! That's a lot of air there from Andreas.
I mean, this is a huge map. Again, I can understand why they would be considering air, because this, again, you're on polar opposite spawns. It's a very large map. There's lots of CSG, lots of water. Air is just a bit of a Swiss Army knife, really, a bit of a multi-tool. It allows you to crack into a lot of different nuts on this map.
Indeed. And it should be remembered that Kiwi and Elodea have won the first game in this best of 3, which means that Matiz and AndreasG are fighting to stay in with a chance of winning $400. $400 goes to the first place out of these two, $200 to the second. So both of these teams are guaranteed a cash prize at this stage in proceedings.
And just because I like rooting for the underdog, I'm really hoping that Matiz and Andreas can pull this one out of the bag, because I also really want to see what the final map's going to be, because it's been kept a secret, even from the casters, so we have no idea either. So for that sake, I'm kind of hoping that the blue team can pull this one off.
Turns out it's PAX.
I
don't know, I'm just...
Wouldn't that be lovely?
It would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Right, speaking of how important these 6 mechs were earlier on, Marshall.
Straight in there.
Straight in with it. They are not going to give control of that away for anybody, especially not these pesky blue team.
Oh, here come a hummingbird. They've seen the problem.
Drifters inbound. I guess drifters are quite a useful unit on this map when there are this many canals and that sort of thing.
Indeed. Blue are aware of this little expansion. They know about it. They're going to send a drifter to try and deal with it.
But is a drifter going to be enough? A drifter actually will be fairly useful. The Barracuda will have just got to scoot underneath it. It can't do anything about it. They will ignore each other, in fact.
Yeah, indeed. But the drifter can come and take out the factory. And that's the crucial bit that Blue want to take out here. Now, look at the economies there. Blue getting an early lead because of Grey's insistence into that pond there. Blue here getting a scout on another naval factory bomber coming up for the bot. And down it goes. Swift and brutal. Here's the drifter. We're going to have a piranha versus a drifter.
Drifter's focusing on the factory, therefore the piranha will win by default because the drifter will not be fighting.
But the next one comes in, and that looks like it was going for the piranha for a second. Here we go. Here comes a bomber.
Well microed, those piranhas. Really well microed. And they do not want to cede control of this central pond.
Bomber takes out the naval fab. A little bit of an air give and take here. This is going to be most of where the air trades occur. Blue over here, going for a proxy by the looks of things. Is that blue or is that grey? I can't tell at the moment. We'll find out when a fab finally arrives. I think it was grey actually, because they just cancelled it with those air fabs and gone the other side of the canal. Meanwhile, on land though, blue actually have the advantage over here. They've pushed up to this central sort of raised area with the mountains here, and keeping grey at bay.
I am concerned though, if this water is as important as you say it is, Grey have a real foothold now in this lake. They've got 2 naval factories up. They're starting to produce orcas which can fire away inland and deny expansions in significant areas of the map. We're already starting to see that happening now. So I'm hoping that Blue will find some way of dealing with this. They are in the water themselves now, have got naval factories and are producing naval units. But is it enough?
Is it enough? Well, we'll find out. But the moment a T2 naval factory starts being built, then you know that that person really wants the naval victory on this map, as it were. T2 naval tends to say it all. T2 bots, I reckon, or T2 air. Indeed, T2 air it is for Grey. Starting that nice and early. What are we doing T2 wise? T2 bots for Blue. With a nice sort of clump of units over on this side of the ice there, ready to push down again to reinforce this central area. Grey So you know last game how blue were feeling very constricted and disorganised? Here...
You're
it
starting to feel the
appears-
pinch on Grey, you think?
Sorry?
Starting to feel the pinch on Grey.
Yeah, I feel so, because I don't think Grey have the foothold on this 6 mechs in the naval just yet. I think Blue have a window of opportunity here to really drive them out. We've got Orcas and Drifters squaring up, ready to take out that naval fabricator, and they do. Now they've just got to take out that torpedo launcher. And that was a ping from you.
That was a ping from me, just indicating there's an Orca floating around here, which I think is looking to... Well, there's a torpedo launcher on the bay. In fact, ignore me. Torpedo launcher's fine. We're good.
It is controlling that 3 mechs for the time being, though, so it's not all lost. If only it was closer to the south coast, though, then it would have taken out those 2 blue fabbers that are running away down there.
That Orca's going to have a really bad time with that torpedo launcher, I think. Okay, good. That's good. I like that. So yeah, I think Blue... This ocean is very much contested now.
Caster bias. Caster bias.
I've told you I'm rooting for Blue. I'm making no secrets about this. I want the third game. I'll be impartial in the third game, but we have to get there first. Bert Custer, I think, took slight umbrage to the recommendation of PAX as our final map. But you know, since as you're probably listening to this cast, strong recommendation from both casters that PAX would be an ideal final map. Just saying. Right, I've got a little bit of air coming out from Blue.
Or Forge
as well.
2v2, I imagine.
Oh, Forge 2v2 would be hilarious. Quite a lot of air for both teams, largely being kept apart from one another, except that Grey just walked about 5 air fabricators right into the middle of Blue's air force, which didn't turn out so well for the fabricators. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Blue just walked 2 bot fabricators right into the path of the Orca, so, you know, potato.
Patationo.
I'm not going down this route with you, Marshall. This gets silly very quickly.
I'm
Little
so
raid coming into the back of the Grey base, that brand new shiny T2 bot factory, looking a little bit shaky. Oh, but there's not enough AA in there to deal with all of these planes. Oh dear.
Yeah, there's a couple of Kestrels in there which are going to town on those Grenadiers. Absolutely to town
Lots
on
of air coming in, but there's, again, not really enough. A lot of AA.
Pretty balanced there in terms of the air power, I think, at the moment, which is why neither player really wants to commit to an engagement. They've both now scoped out the relative air power of the other, and we'll probably see maybe another air factory or 2 going up. Indeed, T2 air coming up for Blue team, T2 eco as well in the base. And look at this, the Grey foothold hasn't got going. T2 naval hasn't got started.
Which is good, because once, as you said, once T2 naval starts to be established in this ocean, let's call it an ocean, it's quite a significant body of water. That's when the game starts to change. And in fact, as I said that, look what just appeared. It's almost like they're listening. You better not be, boys. Oh, here we go. Here's the air forces now starting to come again for another little skirmish, just kind of facing off. There's some Phoenixes in there now, the T2 air anti-air unit. So I think Blue will probably start realising very soon. In fact, they've realised already that they've got T2 air to contend with and are building a T2 air factory of their own.
But it should also be noted that Blue have a lot more ground control here. So even though these Kestrels are coming in and doing a little bit of raiding here, Blue, with their ground forces, have kept Grey pretty much close to the base, really. Grey have not managed to get much of the middle ground at all. They've had to use air fabs, they've had to try and turtle up as far forward as possible, whereas Blue here have been pretty uncontested in this mountainous region.
Kestrel's now really on the outskirts of the Blue base, though. These are going to be a real nuisance until this T2 air comes up from Blue. Gunships just basically being allowed to run completely amok all around the place, being protected by a significant amount of AA. They're T1 and T2 anti-air units in the mix.
So as long as they see that T2 naval factory, which they have done, they know that it's a problem, and they know that they should really go to deal with it. And they could run in there with those Kestrels and take out those 2 naval fabs. Instead they go to the platform.
which is not a bad choice. Killing off eco is not a bad idea, and also getting rid of these pelters, which are going to be a real nuisance otherwise. They're getting a lot of bang for their buck with these kestrels. They are really good. They're putting in some work.
They're losing their time window though. Just to the north, the Galata is going up from these 2 naval fabs. They know that they need to stay alive in order to get that naval factory going. It'll start decaying any second, but once they get that finished, back straight onto the T2 naval factory there. T2 naval now also started for the grey team. It's going to be a close one, this one.
T2 Air up for blue team. So both teams now contesting the T2 naval, contesting T2 Air. What else have we got? T2 bots for both teams as well, I think. So it's very, very even, this game.
That being said, the army count for blue is slightly greater, and it should be noted that, again, this force of grenadiers and blue hawks could push straight down into the base. There's no ground defense. However, as I just sort of revealed, this force here does not have ample anti-air defense. Only a small force of about 6 spinners in there. It's not really enough.
That's nowhere near enough with the number of kestrels that we've been seeing from the grey team. And that's something that the Blues should be wising up to at this point. They should be realising how much they've lost to kestrels. They need to start really working to counter those. This is a very difficult one to call. This is completely even right now. The metal is almost on parity. The army count almost at parity. Fabricator factory count almost at parity.
It's going to be very, very close indeed. And the T2 naval are going to be completed very, very close to one another. In fact, grey are going to get it first, which is quite astonishing. Blue stalling for their metal a little bit there. They have fewer factories, but more fabricators. But here comes the army now, taking the chance. They feel like blue has enough air support, although it looks like they've just lost all their air force somehow. I think it must have flown over a load of anti-air. But that being said, this force here, very, very close to a commander who's turtling up now with walls. Loads of grenadiers in there. The commander immediately taking chinks out of his armour, down to 80% of his health, trying to get microed with this force here. The anti-air still remains. The grenadiers there popping away. Commander trying to retreat. Kiwi thinking, uh-oh, how did this get here?
Meanwhile, whilst that's been going on, I have to just bring you back to the ocean where the grey navy has made a real push and has driven blue and blue's T2 factory out of the water. They've made that important push for the 6 metal spot and they've taken it.
That's very big. Blue being unable to contest that water gives grey a safe space and denies blue a lot of economy. That being said, blue are in a stronger economic position, possibly because of the T2 going up in their base, possibly because of the middle ground that they have managed to grab for themselves. They need to find a way of dealing with Grey's air force so that they can push in successfully, because Grey have not been committing much at all to the land game here, at all.
And that has cost them in terms of their base economics. But they've been obviously looking at this map, they've been committing much more heavily to their naval game. One of their commanders is sat right there in the middle of that ocean and is aggressively pushing up that T2 naval. And we're starting to see now these typhoons with their extremely long range attacks starting to be pushed out. Both economies really suffering at the moment. They are using every single scrap of metal that they're pulling in. Which is good to see at this level of play. You'd hope to see very minimal metal floating. These typhoons are going to be a game changer. They're going to be able to just swoop in land and really dish out some damage. A couple of Leviathans in there as well, maybe even a Kraken. And this is going to be a very, very different pond in a few minutes' time.
You have a teleporter going up in the blue base. Where could it be going? I wonder whether that's just going to be used to pop some units onto the front line pretty quickly here. Interestingly though, I feel like blue have somehow managed to scrounge a large enough ground force here together to repel blue. With the drifters and the T2 bots, I feel like blue need to really focus more on T2 land, because the air, they kind of contest it, which is fine, because that will dissuade Grey from coming in and popping off these armies. But they can't really have the pushing power until they get that T2 ground really going. At the same time now, though, they need to use that T2 air to get back into the water because they've lost it now. They've lost it completely. Apart from these small couple of naval factories on the side, which the moment Grey find, they're just going to go over and completely finish them off. But
interestingly, there's absolutely no AA in Grey's Navy mix. All these orcas and drifters are just getting picked off by a couple of these gunships because they just didn't put any anti-air in their naval mix whatsoever, and that is a big chink in their naval armour. The only exception to that, of course, being the Typhoons themselves, which can only do so much against a competent and significant air force. I think Blue, realising the potency of the Grey Kestrels, have just completely mimicked their strategy, and it's working for them, and they've repelled a large chunk of the Grey Navy, and in fact they've done exactly the same back to Grey as what was done to them, which is that they've used the Kestrels just to weaken everything up, and then they may push through again with a revitalised and re-strengthened naval force of their own.
battle lines being drawn on the land now, though. We've got a teleporter coming up in order to reinforce this pushing army the moment it has done so. What's the sort of army ready to go through it? There isn't one. Maybe a commander going for a proxy base there, but the economies are still struggling. But it'll all come down to who wins this engagement here. The air is in favour of Blue at the moment. So now Grey and that air engage there.
Was in favour of Blue. Those Phoenixes are cutting chunks out of the Blue Air Force as we speak, or they were. Right, now, okay, this is interesting. We've got enough Kestrels in here potentially to do some damage to that commander if they so chose. They've chosen not to. They're instead going for more eco-raiding.
Yeah, they won't be able to get a kill of the commander, which is why they're keeping them away from them at the moment. And killing a commander at this point won't actually seal a win for the game either, so going for the economy is the most sensible
Some really
thing to
poor
do.
trades from Blue Air Force there against the Grey Air Force. Lots of Phoenixes in there, and Grey reacting to the number of Kestrels that they've seen in Blue's Air Force, just putting in loads and loads of those Phoenixes. They're absolutely devastating anti-air fighter planes.
I mean, Blue have the better economy and they have the greater army count. They just don't have the composition yet. That's interesting to me.
This is a very, very good game to watch. It's back and forth. No one team has had complete dominance over every field at every point. It's been toing and froing.
Air engage! Here come the Kestrels trying to pick away at this defensive army. They're not quite managing to get close enough in. Retreating out again, but Grey's air support now is not there. Will Blue finally commit the land army here? It's possible. Look at Grey though, in the water. They've got the Typhoons squared up against the shoreline. They can't quite reach the base though. So it's not too dangerous for them.
I don't think that Grey's foothold on this ocean is anywhere near as secure as it ought to be at this stage, given how long they've held dominance for, and that's mostly been because Blue came in with a large force of Kestrels and just picked off what was left. It was largely left undefended. They are sweeping through now to try and pick off what's left of Blue's foothold in the sea.
Grey actually making the first move here on the land, pushing their entire army out. They have the support of a kaiju now. Loads and loads of strikers will completely decimate these grenadiers. I think Grey have realised they have the stronger composition here, and they're pushing out, pushing forwards, forcing Blue back, forcing an engagement here. Where is the Blue Air Force? You can see the icon mode in picture-in-picture down there, but the cinematics is in the main view. Meanwhile, Blue's little naval pocket has been completely taken out in the water there. Here comes Blue's Air Force. It's in the water. It's in the wrong place. The Grenadiers continuing to chip away at the grey army there.
These Kestrels need to come and take out these Typhoons. These Kestrels really need to come in and take out these Typhoons. El Pronto. Here they come. They've got the fighters to deal with the little droney things, and then the Kestrels are going to come in there and they're going to finish off those two aircraft carriers, and that's going to stop Grey's advance through the rest of the water. Really effective use of a good air composition there, with those fighters defending the Kestrels while they take out the key targets.
We haven't got any sort of late game strats occurring in Blue's base, even though they have a really strong economy at this point. And I think they have a lot of that economy because they are just being forced to reclaim wreckage at this stage.
Which is not a bad strategy. Like, it's free real estate, it's free metal.
I can't
Take
see
it.
where they're doing it though. I don't see any combat fabs doing it.
Or is it just they're expanding their tier 2 economy outside of the main base?
It's
I
possible.
haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Really haven't seen too many tier 2 metal extractors, only a few, as I said, right in the main base itself. There's a Air Force push now by Grey coming across here to come and do exactly the same thing again. A couple of Kestrels, well defended by fighters, coming in to take out naval units. We're seeing a lot of air versus naval this game. The naval forces not really getting much of a chance to fight off and square up against one another.
Grey transitioning to full-on land push now. We've got 4 kaijus pushing. So Grey realising, well, you know, we need to fight these guys back on land. And Matiz, I think, loves his grenadiers a bit too much. He really needs a bit more oomph in this composition. And the grenadiers have been pushed back away from this mountain range where they had the line of sight advantages, whereas now they're out in the open where they can get shot at with impunity.
I have to say, the strategy that Blue's been using, getting the Kestrels just to go from metal site to metal site to metal site, picking off one metal extractor at a time, calmly, patiently picking off little chunks, and it's wearing their opponent down over time. That's what's going to make the difference here. When their opponent is not able to fight back because they just don't have the economy to support it, that's when they're really going to start to feel the pinch. And already look at the disparity now between the two. Blue almost double the metal income at this stage of what the Grey team is able to cobble together. And that's going to take a while to be felt on the front lines, but you can bet your bottom dollar it will be felt. And you can see the economy of the Grey team right now struggling down at 50% efficiency. They're just not able to produce.
We have the land engagement. Sorry to interrupt you, but here it is. Grey looks like they've pushed into Blue here. Both lines have been drawn out so that maximum damage is being done. In all instances, Kaiju's there backing things up. Looks like Blue actually have the advantage here. The Grenadiers, just with the sheer amount of Grenadiers there, one out the day. Grey now on the retreat. Kaiju's firing from their stern as they hightail it towards the mountain range, getting picked off by the sniper bots, unable to round that iceberg there. And that might be something of an opportunity for Blue now to say, maybe I can push in. That being said, from an all-seeing perspective, we can see more kaijus coming in to support. Blue can't, and perhaps they kind of think that that's going to be a thing that they don't want to push in on. And it's interesting. So they did have a big fight there, and a lot of units were lost on both sides, more so for Grey. But Blue still unable to press the advantage.
Blue's army composition, look at how many spinners they've got in there. Obviously still reeling from that earlier attack by the Kestrels, but obviously that then means they have a large blob of in radar blips, which the opponent is obviously going to look at and go, oh. But it's when they start to see, oh, it's mostly anti-air, we can start pushing in with these big, heavy, hard-hitting units that we're producing. And that's going to really start to tell over time. Interestingly, Blue, I think, could be using this naval force a lot better. They've got enough there, they can push in down that second canal and start to put the pinch in on the Grey economy in the water there as well.
I think they're going to be waiting for the time being, though, because they've just finished their T2 vehicles. Levelers and Shellers will be a big thing on this one to really hammer things home. There's a few also defensive Hulkins for Blue here, so any naval push towards the coast won't necessarily get anywhere, unfortunately. And these Hulkins actually picking away at the naval economy there. But Kaiju's trying to come up this rear ramp, and can they get close enough without getting picked off? If only someone put a Vanguard in a Pelican and moved them with that block. Would it, block the radar signal? I don't know. Give it a go. But it is a way to approach the Hulkins. That being said, though, Grey swinging sideways.
Two of those Kaijus just got absolutely rinsed by a single Hulkins pellet firing over the top there. I suspect the next two will share the same fate.
Off. They do.
One and done.
That being said, though, on the land, Grey have just pushed out sideways around Blue's army, taken out 6 mechs, but potentially at the expense of the entire army, as these orcas here sat there in the canal ready to defend, and Blue now cycling back over these ramps, and again, in order to defend. I think Grey's push power here has just dried up significantly, and that could be a big moment in this game, because that gives Blue the opportunity to push in here, as Grey now are falling further behind in terms of the economy. Their Kaiju support network has, their supply line has stopped, and Blue seems to really be starting to tip this balance here, finally, into the inevitable slip slide.
I think we are now starting to feel the effect of all of that really effective economy raiding that Blue have been doing throughout this game, just patiently moving and microing those kestrels around all of the Grey economy buildings that we've been seeing. Ultimately, they've been able to replace their units that they've been losing on the front line way quicker now as a result of this disparity. And that's what's really starting to tell here, because they're just producing more and more units. Look at the army counts. 400 for Blue, 100 for Grey, and that's not going to get any narrower while this disparity exists between these two metal economies. I think we are going to be getting a third game, Marshall, if we carry on along this current trajectory.
It looks like it for sure. Blue just knew the map, they knew the strategies, and they knew the counters if they lost the naval. They kept at it, and they still have that little naval enclave, keeping that alive, not relinquishing the naval at all, keeping Grey focusing on not only land, not only air response, but also not giving them free naval. If they gave Grey that naval access for free, Grey would have the ability to divert their resources back onto the land, back into the air, and now here, the sea of blue icons on the land against a very flimsy piece of stale spaghetti Grey icons down on the other side of the mountain there. I don't know who you're betting on here, but I think it's the side with loads of infernos, loads of air, and loads of other blue geometric shapes coming up the rear.
So they've been downgraded from gunmetal grey to, what was it?
Flimsy stale spaghetti.
Stale spaghetti. So gunmetal grey has become stale spaghetti grey. Fantastic.
It was more a comment at the thinness of the line
Oh,
of
okay. I
units.
thought it was a snide comment on the colour choice.
No,
Stale
the
spaghetti.
colour is grey, gunmetal grey, or however you want to call it. But it was just the sheer lack of units to make the line any thicker at all, that it just looked like a very thin piece of spaghetti.
This does look like the end of the line for the Grey team. It's a large sea of blue, as you say, just going straight through the front door at this point. I don't see anything they can do about it. There's enough AA in that mix, I think, to deal with anything that they can do defensively.
We've got a Grey commander caught out in the open, in the naval on the other side of the planet there. We're just going to keep him tracked. Meanwhile, we're going to watch this front push here. The other commander, though, on the other side of the base, keeping himself well hidden. The Grey's air force, which at one point looked very, very imposing, just couldn't keep up with the avalanche of production power that Blue were putting into it. And they just fell behind.
Now, if nothing else, the amount of economy being destroyed right now by this push has put Grey out of the game.
Oh, yes.
But I'm fairly sure it's going to do way more than that. Well, the looks of it, this is going to carry on streaming straight through. That commander
GG's
is
are cool.
looking a little bit flaky, and there they go, up in smoke.
Game 3 is on the horizon.
That was, I think, the longest game of the tournament so far. We've just ticked over the 30-minute mark. A long game, it's a big planet. These guys are going to be feeling pretty mentally fragged. I suspect we may be asked for another 5-minute break before the final.
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree.
I certainly would if I were in their position, and I have nowhere near the concentration levels that these guys do. So their brains are probably sat there on fire at the moment, so it's probably worth giving them just another 5 minutes, and it also gives us time just to get you guys extra hyped for the final brackets. These guys have just finished a 30-minute long semi-final, and and they are probably absolutely fragged from that. So ask them to get back onto Disparity and do this for the final time this evening. I can imagine they're actually looking forward very much to the end of this, regardless of the outcome. However, it's worth reminding they are playing for a $400 prize. A reminder that tonight's prize pool was generously donated by Violetania and Gandalf in support of this tournament. Very generous donors, and both sets of players looking forward to playing for that top prize of $400. Second place is of course $200. So all players here this evening will be receiving some form of remuneration for their efforts.
Indeed. I don't know about any titles that they'll receive. Maybe slightly derusted ancient. I don't know. Of course, we can never really prove how much work was done by the ancient versus the current pro. So, you know, it could be that Andreas is completely carrying Matiz. Who knows? But here we are, spawning in on Disparity, one of the ranked maps here. Double spawn. You can spawn on the far continent there or the close continent. So you've got two different sets of types of play here. You've got your sort of support commander at the back, who's going to be going for eco, a bit of air and naval, and your front commander, who's going to be in a frantic skirmish here between and around this sort of mountain range here on the beaches. So in blue we have on the front spawn Matiz, the micro heavy guy who's returning from StarCraft and something of a long hiatus from PA, going double vehicles into triple bots, so no air from this guy. He intends to go full out scraps on this beachhead. Meanwhile, on the continent spawn, we have the King Beast himself, AndreasG, going bots into triple air. And on the south, we have Kiwi here, sporting his Beast Commander, going air and bots as well. And circling round, a former King of the Planet, Elodea, going double vehicles into a third vehicle factory. So a slight disparity there in terms of the builds.
So it's interesting, we actually have our two ancients on the front line, and we've got our two current pros sat at the back in support, as it were. It's almost like having a protege, having trained him up throughout the whole tournament, sending him out to go and fight on his own. Here you go, have a little 1v1 and I'll just throw some planes your way every so often. That's basically what we've got here. And let's see what happens when the training wheels come off.
Indeed. And indeed, what we already see is Andreas coming in with, looks like a spark drop, which is going to get intercepted by Kiwi. He was wise to that. Nothing today for you, Andreas. Meanwhile, a couple of docks from Kiwi. Moving up onto Andreas's continent, looking for a couple of fab snipes. They're just going to sit there sentry so that Kiwi knows when things have wandered over in that direction. Just pretty nice for Kiwi. Although the main crux of the action so far is going to be here on the beach spawn. Matiz getting his eco, and his air support from Andreas has gone striker heavy.
It's quite interesting. We've actually got an anti-clockwise movement here. The pink commander sending all of his round to the right, and then immediately being hit from behind by a small striker force coming from the blue commander.
I mean, the small striker force will be able to be countered by the commander if necessary, or any strikers that constitute the defender's advantage. But going from the pink's point of view here, this sort of counterclockwise motion is probably better because of the amount of expansion that you have on these platforms here. You've got 5 mechs there, plus a potential 3 if you take the whole platform. But it should be noted that the amphibiousness of docks could cut across this little corner here and bypass that if you happen to make the mistake of only turtling up the platform.
Interesting that the ant versus striker is a very potent combination. So in response to having seen those strikers coming across from Matiz, Elodea has put out a couple of ants, and that's just made those strikers, they just cannot push in because they get picked off very quickly by those slightly slower moving but harder hitting ants.
A little bit of a naval play here from Kiwi and Andreas. Piranha 1v1ing. Nick in chat says that if you can block this coastline with piranhas, that's a really big win, and I can imagine why, because it prevents the other person from getting into naval in the easiest way possible, and that is closest to this set of 10 mechs in the middle there.
Can the commander not deal with the piranha though?
Commander can, yes, but the commander's got a long way to walk, and it takes a lot of the time away. Meanwhile, the other commander gets more firmly into water, building the orcas and the barracudas and such like.
Well, it looks like Elodea seems to have the upper hand on this front line here. Matiz is having to react, I think, for the most part, to whichever tune Elodea chooses to play.
In fact, Elodea is switching up to full-on ants here, so he's moved off strikers very, very soon. And Matiz also going for infernos.
So we've moved on from the faster moving light vehicles and bots, and we're now into full slugging mode, I would call this, where effectively we now have, again, 2 lanes, and that's where these units are going to be sent, the long lane and the short lane, and the players are going to try and find out how those interplay with one another. Is this a map that the players are familiar with?
Yes, yeah, they'll have played this. I don't know about Matiz and Elodea, but certainly Kiwi and Andreas know this one. It's been in ranked a number of seasons, and I think it's considered quite a favourite among a few people. I don't know about Kiwi and Andreas themselves.
Poor Micro there from Pink just charged their entire army straight into an Inferno, which has just mopped it all up.
Ooh,
disgusting. But now an Inferno coming out for Pink as well, so it's fairly quickly countered. They just need to make sure they're wise to the fact there are Infernos in that front line and not charge their entire army into them yet again. Much better micro from Pink there, and that's forced Blue to turn around and think again. That poorly microed Faber picked off as well.
Should be noted here that Elodea has managed to start forward turtling this platform, which is quite a big win there for Team Pink in this instance. Matiz now having to respond to this. He's lost out 3 mechs, which has now been relinquished to Team Pink. Meanwhile, in the water, we're starting to see our naval engagements. Andreas going pretty heavy air here, and trying to get up with a little bit of orca play to deal with the barracudas. However, barracudas will deal with those orcas in a 1v1 situation. Also got some drifters coming up from Pink along the western approach here, trying to get into this little corner. Got some defensive docks to deal with that, but it's a nice idea to try and get some sneaky raiding down there.
Now docks, of course, are amphibious, so they can just charge underwater. They can't do any damage whilst they're underwater, but they can just pop up on the other side and be a real nuisance. And that looks to be exactly what Andreas is trying to use them for, to come up and raid on their opponent's island. In much the same way as those drifters are attempting to do to their own island there. And if they just turn their attention back to those drifters and micro them a little better, they can finish that job off. Lots of piranhas though, so it's quite a risky game for docks to be underwater at the moment, but it's played off. In fact, they managed to pick off a drifter on the other side. Now they're going to get those mechs as well. Good bit of early raiding there. Eco's still fairly well balanced. A little bit of Trico going on for both teams.
As you would expect, and starting to get T2 Air for Kiwi. T2 Air complete for Andreas. And T2 Bots started for Matiz. No T2 for Elodea. That's potentially quite a big flaw for Elodea. He needs T2 there, especially once Matiz starts popping over Blue Hawks and Sniper Bots across this middle bit here. He doesn't even need to move them all the way around. He does if he goes for slammers, perhaps, but his Blue Hawks should have the range to be able to cover that if he has the radar coverage. And his T2 Bots is more or less complete.
It's interesting, actually. I think Elodea is starting to lose the upper hand a little bit on this front line here. Certainly he's having to hide behind some walls now. He has got a defensive force here, but those grenadiers are pretty good at picking off ants that are stationary. So he's having to really focus heavily on this front line, try and micro those ants. And at the moment he's just being kited really, really well by Matiz, using those grenadiers to full effect.
Yeah, the Grenadiers had a lot of an advantage when they were just over the crest of this little ramp here, because the attacking units like the ants and stuff couldn't fire back. The attacking Grenadiers could though, but the ants were kind of put out to cold. But here we go, the T2 Bots is ready, the Slammers are coming out, the Sniper Bots are there as well, the radar was set up by Matiz, and I would imagine we'll start to see those Blue Hawks coming out in the not too distant. Not seeing any T2 Naval yet from Pink. We do from Blue. and T2 Air for Kiwi almost complete. So Team Pink here very far behind in terms of the T2 game, which is a really big chink in a really big problem.
Well, they've got, interestingly, they've got their commander here pushing, they're really aggressively pushing this naval. It looks like the blue team have queued up a T2 naval factory, but it is the pink team who have started, and they've already committed their commander to assisting that advanced naval factory going up. So that is where they are focusing their efforts here, I think, is the naval. They're seeing that the naval is going to be where they're going to win this. The front line, they just seem to be maintaining and holding for now. I think that they're going to try and put the big money on the naval for the late game win. That's where they seem to be going. Kestrels back out in force. Gunships worked out really, really well for Matiz and Andreas in the previous game. And looks like they're back again to come and cause a nuisance.
Yeah, indeed. And it should be noted that Elodea now has started his T2 vehicles on the far platform rather than in his base, which is a bit of a contrast to the T2 bots that Matiz has gone for. So Matiz is going to have to transition to Blue Hawks when he sees that. These vehicles with the shellers and levelers could be quite a problem. I'm surprised that we are starting to see it. Kiwi coming over here with a bit of naval support from these orcas on this little choke here, which is quite nice. But in come the Kestrels now, There aren't any narwhals to deal with this. There isn't a defensive air force either, Kiwi.
Oh goodness, there's a lot of damage these Kestrels could do right now. There's not a huge amount of any AA in any of Elodea's forward base. This could be a real problem if they're used effectively.
I mean, there is the commander there, but that probably won't be quite enough to stave off. How many Kestrels is that now? 9 Kestrels. Many. Yeah. Okay. What is 9? Make that plus 2. So there we go. Many. 9 plus 2 equals many. Chat. You heard it here.
It looks like they're not being pushed in. They're not being committed. He doesn't want to risk his air force just yet.
Matiz pelting across this ravine here. If only he built a lob to add insult to injury and just start throwing docks across the gap. That would be a real problem for Elodea.
Elodea already does have problems on this front line. He's completely secure on the longer flank, and he's got those expansions, which is in itself a win. But he's really got these guys knocking on his doorstep. He's got to address this, and he's got tier 2 bots. He's got aggressive artillery play. And he's got a commander right there on that front line. If he loses that front line, it's the commander that's going to be in jeopardy. And he just doesn't have any tier 2 support there whatsoever. And meanwhile, there's a couple of, again, this flock of Kestrels just coming up over the top and being a real nuisance anywhere that there is no AA protection.
T2 vehicles are complete now. T2 naval again started for pink over in the westernmost pond. Or is that the easternmost? Who knows? But T2 naval is complete for pink here, not so for blue, so it could present an opportunity in the water here to fight Andreas back and deal some damage. But all of Andreas's stuff is coming...
skirmish occurring, just to interrupt you briefly, there's a significant trade here, lots of Phoenixes involved, and lots of air lost on both sides. In fact, that's most of both of the air forces wiped out there. Poor Micro from pink just gave the upper hand to blue at the end, but that's just a lot of planes all gone to pot.
It should be noted that pink does have the greater economy here, but blue have the greater army. So it's a very strange disparity that we've got here in terms of who has the upper hand in which region. Blue perhaps tactically and strategically, but pink perhaps economically on paper.
These Kestrels are just, again, they're just being let completely loose. There's no AA here to deal with these. They're just going absolutely rife, taking out all of the spare eco they can find, and they are going to start leveling this eco disadvantage now, if left unchecked. Exactly the same tactic we saw the last game, and it was so effective at bringing those economies back into line. There we go, you can see now, taking out those combat fabricators, there's the Nide, Pinks and Trico. They've taken out a good half dozen mechs as well, and that's brought those 2 metal economies back in line, reined in Pink's economic advantage. Really well played, good use of those Kestrels. Pink just a little bit too slow to respond with their own air force, not able to get the Kestrels escape unchecked and live to go and raid mechs another day.
Elodea is moving all of his... He's got a teleporter somewhere. Where's that going?
Have you seen the size of the submarine fleet here, Marshall?
Yeah, it's pretty major. And as long as he can get Andreas out of naval, that is a big win. And
his
he
air
will
force
get
is
Andreas out
completely
of
useless
naval.
against this submarine threat.
Yeah,
That's
completely.
the important thing here. And these ice stingrays, of course, are potent anti-air platforms, and he's just charged his Kestrels into 2 stingrays, and they've just absolutely decimated his Kestrel count.
Could this be $200 slipping away from Andreas and Matiz?
That single slip there cost him his entire army of about 15 Kestrels, which is a big investment. That was just wiped out in 2 seconds. Big, costly mistake there from the blue team.
Here we go, Elodea moving up with his shellers and small T1 ground force, but he's got to deal with the pelters first. And he might just about do that. Meanwhile, Matiz saying, okay, I can stall you on this side, I'm going to push the other. This could be a little upset here. Little upset. That being said, Matiz might need this army in a minute to save his base from this push. If he loses this army attacking this entrenched position, that's probably his base dead. If he loses this army. If he keeps this army, he needs to hightail it back to his base immediate.
Worth noting there's a teleporter here from Pink. I'm not sure whether he's putting units into it or out of it, but there's a teleporter there. So
He's
more
putting
units
it
can
back
be put
into
through.
his main base from there and there.
And we've got Kestrels coming in. How much AA is in that force there from Matiz? Kestrels there ready to pounce on any unprotected ground units. There's enough AA there, I think, to dissuade him from committing that air force. A little bit of tit for tat here.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And it's a bit surprising as well. I wouldn't have expected Matiz to have committed to that, because now look what's on his doorstep. A load of shellers that Matiz cannot deal with. And Andreas has to come in with the air. He can't because he hasn't got any left. And Kiwi has the coastal blockade here, shelling in on Andreas's base. I think this is game.
I'm not sure they've got quite enough units here. What they are going to start doing here is polishing through a load of this eco, which is really going to hurt. I'm not sure whether this can call the whole game. Surely not.
Well,
Not this early.
hurting that eco, and blue is already behind. If they can take out that power line, that pretty much is it. They're only floating by 5k down to 4k.
And there's a lot of mechs being taken out there. T2 mechs at that as well. That's pretty gnarly.
That's very gnarly indeed. And Andreas is completely stymied by Kiwi's blockade here.
He has managed to fight off what's left of that pink force, but that's a huge loss on eco. Meanwhile though, same thing's actually happening. Again, tit for tat. You take my base, fine. I'll go and put a hole in yours as well. Big pings there from the pink team. Whoops.
I mean, that being said, you know, look where the Pink's commander is. He knows that it's not the worst thing for him at this point. That army from Matiz will not get a comm kill, but yes, it will take out a base.
Take out the base, and importantly that power and all of that mechs as well. Think about how much mechs that has taken out on its way around. That's a good dozen mech sites that's been able to eradicate on its way through. And I think actually overall, blue still has a base at the end of this, pink doesn't.
Yes, but look at Blue's continental base. It's in ruins.
Oh,
the T2 air is
I
about
was
gone.
not paying attention over there. My goodness.
That's the potency of naval on this map.
That's the Kaijus doing their thing.
That's the Kaijus doing their thing. Andreas has been pushed into the other pond that Pink also have dominance over. So generally speaking, even though Matiz has survived so far, Matiz and Andreas combined with their current situation and economic outlook cannot get back into this game in terms of the naval. The naval is just too strong there. That's pretty much... And there we go, Elodea hightailing it across the channel there.
Yeah, he's not coming out to play with that army anymore.
No, he's not.
What have we got? Are there enough Kestrels in there to take out that army? There is only a couple
easy.
of spinners. As long as they focus the spinners first, which they seem to be doing. Oh, they've had to pull it back. Wasn't quite enough.
Matiz is wondering, where's the commander? Oh, wait a second. He's run away. Run away, Jim.
So what we're saying here is that Matiz didn't carry Andreas hard enough.
Indeed. That is exactly correct. Then again, you know, carrying someone with a prickly crown...
Not quite.
Although that being said, if Andreas was carrying Matiz while wearing a prickly crown, Matiz was probably fairly uncomfortable throughout the whole affair.
Another significant naval skirmish happening here. Lots and lots of scrub marines kicking around, and it's going to be a favourable trade for the pink team once again. Not what blue wanted to see. A couple of drifters coming in to supplement this force as well. There is the GG called from blue.
And that is it. Andreas goes first. Matiz duly follows. And that is game, set, match, and tournament right there.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to announce that the winners of this tournament are Elodea and KillerKiwi Juice. Honourable runners-up, Matiz and AndreasG. Marshall, shall we see if we can invite these players in for a post-match discussion? I will just make sure they're okay for that on Discord.
I would suggest so, because that was quite a last game actually. I think it was a lot of players in chat were sort of predicting the sort of slippery slide into loss there for the Blues, with Pink's naval dominance there, which was a lot to go by. But there we go. I mean, it was just really, really well played on all fronts, I think, really.
One moment, please.
That's alright. So, you know that thing where I said that Elodea was a bronze?
Yes.
I might relinquish that comment.
You
I
might?
might take that back.
Well, hopefully he'll be here in the channel with us.
I will move in momentarily. Oops. I just do.
What did you do?
I think I moved into the wrong channel.
Ah.
It's fine.
This is show up.
And there we are. All of our participants are in the channel with us. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Yo yo.
Thank you. Congratulations. Well played.
Congratulations.
Oh, I'm muted on
thank
the
you.
Discord. That'll be why you can't hear me.
They can hear you through.
They can hear me, of course, through the microphone. Sorry. Oh dear.
WrongCat's
Sorry,
confused
it's been a long night, and
just
I
ruined everyone's congratulations to each other.
Oh, fantastic. Sorry, guys. Oh, that was absolutely fantastic to watch. All three of those games were brilliant.
Yeah, that was great.
I wanted, if I may, just focus for a second on the second game. That was very much a war of attrition on all fronts there. How did that feel for you guys, like that, in terms of, I can imagine the intensity of your thought process for a full half an hour there. How drained did that leave you feeling?
Oh,
Yes,
my eyes are bloodshot. I'm sweating. I need some Mountain Dew now. You know,
Sweaty gamer.
that was a long game.
Yeah, I was doing fine on land, and then I'm like, yeah, happy with my grenadiers, right? Slowly getting my tier 2. And then suddenly a dramatic voice from Andreas, man, I lost on naval. There's tier 2 navy coming our way. I have no idea how to respond to that. And I'm like, oh shit.
But
it was tiring with the air micro too. Like you just gotta be on top of micro all the time with tier 2 air, because it's like just one wrong engagement and your whole advantage is gone.
So there was actually one moment in that game that we just had there where blue team, Matiz, that must have been Andreas controlling those kestrels. You accidentally flew the kestrels right over a couple of stingrays, and you lost the entire force of your kestrels in a couple of seconds. Did that feel like a pretty key moment for you in there?
I don't know. It's hard to
Gerard.
say. Like we lost their superiority in general there, and they clogged up all their expansions with like at least 3 Galatas. So it felt like it wouldn't be as strong anymore. But still, it's a big loss, obviously, and it's not something we want to see.
Well, one thing I did want to highlight there for all of you guys, just watching this as we were, it was really obvious how much attention to detail was being put into things like denying your opponent's metal expansion. So you could just look around and you could see that someone at some point was always looking at where your opponent's metal was and just sending a couple of units just to go and get rid of the odd metal extractor. And were you feeling that effect as players? Were you feeling like you constantly had to be looking over your shoulder at that?
Yeah,
for
like
sure.
always raiding your metal and you got to defend with like static defense. Like that's one of the biggest thing that's changed since the last time I played is that you don't just spam units. You got to actually defend your expansions and then do proxies and T2 and everything. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, positioning is important. Rating is important. Like all of these concepts have been very well developed. So it's like if you're not on top of that, you're going to lose games against people who figure that stuff out and do recognize exactly what you're doing and are responding to that.
So is this a format that you guys might be interested in taking up again?
Yeah, it's a long format, but it's a fair format for sure. I had fun.
Yeah, you mean like 2v2 too, right?
I was thinking the 2v2s as in the 2v2 tournaments in general. I suppose it's quite difficult to do these old and new things, but yeah, pros
Oh,
and
for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
2v2s are fun.
It's very different from 1v1 too.
Yeah, definitely.
Would there be any interest for another Do-si-do for those of you who remember that? Elodea, I hope you do.
What's a do-si-do?
The Do-si-do, the one where you won your Theta plushie. Yeah.
I remember the plastic, not the do-si-do though.
Ah, it's the one where you basically start off doing 1v1s and then you do 2v2s and 3v3s and you kind of trade partners the whole way around.
Oh yeah, that.
I remember it too. I went through the qualifier to play in it.
Oh, that's right, you did, yeah.
Yeah. Like any tournaments are very much welcomed, right? It's not a lot of tournaments lost here, I think.
All right, okay. Well,
Agreed.
I mean, I've been kind of pining to do another one. I'm not sure if I'm back into gaming enough to actually organise one myself, but I could certainly try and slip in a few suggestive, seeds
Yeah,
or
we can
ideas.
do
in
it
places.
together, Marshall.
Hey,
There you go.
job done. Right, great. I've just thrown that bombshell out there. Great, that's that one off my mind. Matiz, Andreas, where did you really feel for you that all went wrong in the last game there? Because you did a fantastic job fighting back from the initial defeat.
Well, I lost on the right side the platform, which was very huge. So basically, I went both sides, and Elodea went just one side, which secured him the side, which is quite a lot of metal. And then on the left side, I kind of had advantage there, and I was doing fine. The problem was that I couldn't push through wall plus pelters too easily, at least with my sniper bolts and stuff. Maybe if I got blue hawks or something. So basically, he locked down his side, and I couldn't really do much with advantage on my side, right? And well, eventually that snowballed, and I invested quite a bit into that army, but I couldn't really do much with it.
I mean, what you were managing to do was hold your ground for a time. And I was in the cast, I was suggesting that Blue Hawks probably would have hit across the ravine quite nicely.
Yeah, but the problem is I wasn't aware that there is such a late tier 2. So I went for sniper bots, which was a huge mistake.
And did you consider Locusts to go and deal with Kiwi's base? The base on the continent, rather than the one exactly opposite you?
I didn't, but that could possibly be, like, I'm still learning all the units, so I'm rather sticking to basically quite units that I know, so I wasn't really feeling confident with Locust at all, so I didn't really use them.
Well, if we're going to see more of you around, well, who knows what you'll learn.
In the future. No. You can look forward to it. But I think it's spot on. Like that platform is big, and that's 45 metal at the very least, right? And then you have the 2 in the back that secures 2, and that essentially like it's harder to contest naval 2 when they have like that slight edge. It's gonna very much count in the long run.
Well, either way, that was very well played. Elodea, Kiwi, the tournament winners. How are you feeling?
We feel like some tournament winners, you know. I feel like, you know, I think Andreas and Matiz, they practiced a lot. I think they were really good opponents. I think both teams deserve to be here. So it was nice having the privilege to play them. It was really fun.
Magnanimous in
I just
victory.
want to say, I think it's a privilege to play with Kiwi. Like again, like I'm a silver leaguer and I basically won a tournament. So.
I think you're more than silver if you put some time.
I'm keeping quiet at this point.
Yeah, Marshall did call you bronze, but
I mean, that's before you won a tournament. So you managed to rank up a couple of times mid-tournament. So, you know, good going.
And then finally, guys, Senescence has just joined us in the channel, and I would just like to put this opportunity to say thank you to Senescence for organising this awesome tournament, because it's the people that hide behind the scenes that really make this sort of stuff work, and Senescence has done an awesome job. I've literally just turned up today and been told, here's what you're doing, and it's been great, and I've, apart from forgetting the name of the tournament just the once while streaming, it's all gone really smoothly. That is all thanks to the organisational prowess and skill that goes on behind the scenes. So thanks, Citizens, and I think Clopsy helped you out with that as well.
And contacting everybody too, like that's a big job. Getting all these players who's off the grid, you know, hiding in submarines and whatnot, to like come over ground and play PA. It's no easy job.
Yeah, getting all the ex-pro players here was huge in terms of work, but on the other hand, like I think a bunch of us can stay, so that's also awesome work for the scene as well.
I'd just like to say a few things as well. This tournament has probably ended up being the best tournament I've ever organised. I've organised many 2v2 tournaments, 1v1 tournaments, clan games, but this one just had to say the most twists and turns. Like, there's so many favourite teams around this tournament. It started off as one, then it changed to another, and another, and another throughout the tournament. And I just want to say thank you to all of the participants for making this possible.
yeah, man, thank you. It
All
was a
the
great
current
tournament.
pros,
Yeah,
all the current
and
pros,
congratulations, guys.
all the
Yeah,
past
thanks.
pros that came back after years of being inactive and decided to come back just for fun to play this tournament. I mean, the cash prize wasn't here the entire time, so you guys started this just for fun. I'd like to say thank you for Marshall and TheWrongCat for casting this, I think, almost 6-hour tournament. That's insane in itself. And I think everyone who enjoyed it, everyone who watched it just enjoyed it so much. Thank you to Klops as well. He did a lot of the inviting some of the players, including Elodea. I had nothing to do with inviting Elodea. That is all Klops for inviting the old players. But yeah,
I'm pretty sure you said who's Elodea, right?
yeah, thanks to all of you guys.
Yeah, organizing, it was really fun. Like just seeing all of the old faces again, and like some new faces as well. It's really interesting how the scene has changed.
I'm just hoping some of you oldies can come back and appreciate PA once again.
Yeah.
By the
Such
sounds
a-
of by the
such a
sounds
good
of
game
things, there's a few people who've said in the Twitch chat and elsewhere that they've come back and they're here to stay for a bit. It's been awesome for me to come back and reminisce live on stream. The poor viewers' delight, I'm sure.
And of course, with all the changes coming in, you know, you've got the Vanguard radar jamming, you've got shields on the horizon as well. You know, it's I think a few things, you know, could shake up the game a bit in really positive and interesting ways. So, you know, it's good to have people back and people joining, and it'll be interesting. Be an interesting few months.
Yeah. Anyway, congratulations to Kiwi and Elodea again for winning $400, and congratulations to Andreas and Matiz as well for winning the $200. It's still a pretty damn good feat. There are some really potent teams in there, not just you two.
Definitely.
And it's very, very hard for well done, guys.
Right, perfect. In that case, I think that last thing is to say it's goodbye from me, TheWrongCat.
That's goodbye from me, Marshall. Thanks everyone for watching, and and for everyone for playing as well. And we will see you in the not too distant, I'm sure.